The Pepsi Challenge was a blind taste test between Coke and Pepsi, where consumers drank samples of both and did not know which they were drinking. The subjects were connected to brain monitors, and during the blind aspect of the test, the consumers were split in half on preference between the two brands, demonstrated by activity in the ventromedial prefrontal cortex of the brain, which processes feelings of reward. The test was done again, this time with consumers knowing if they were sampling Coke or Pepsi, and 3/4 of the consumers preferred the taste of Coke. Surprisingly, their brain activity also changed, with the lateral prefrontal cortex, which processes high-level cognitive function, and the hippocampus, an area for memory, both engaged, which indicates that consumers prefer the taste of Coke not because of the taste, but because of their ability to relate it to memories and other impressions the brand has made on them. This is a prime example of the power neuromarketing has in today's evolving business world. Neuromarketing is a new field of marketing research that measures consumers' sensoromotor, cognitive, and affective response to marketing stimuli. Various types of technology are used to measure the consumer's responses, such as functional magnetic resonance imaging to measure changes in activity in parts of the brain, electroencephalography and steady-state topography to measure activity in specific regional areas of the brain. Neuromarketing is helping scientists and companies understand why a consumer places a set amount of value on an item and why it will vary from person to person and region to region. As humans, we are very capable of expressing what we want, what we like, and even how much we are willing to pay for something. But very rarely can we explain why we have those feelings, and we certainly can't explain how those feelings come into play in our reactions to advertisements or images exposed to us. Another example of neuromarketing research being used in advertisements is when Frito-Lay used EEG technology to determine that consumers respond strongly to the orange dust on their fingers while eating Cheetos. The EEG patterns picked up a sense of giddy subversion that consumers enjoy over the messiness of the product. This enabled Frito to launch a series of advertisements that involved Chester Cheetah encouraging consumers to commit subversive acts with Cheetos. One ad being an airline passenger putting Cheetos in a sleeping, snoring seatmate's nose to solve the snoring problem. The campaign was so successful that it earned Frito-Lay a 2009 award from the Advertising Research Foundation. Neuromarketing can also provide important but complex data to companies trying to test on a global audience. While the product testing may provide very similar neural responses in American and Asian consumers, the marketing implications can be vastly different. For example, expressions of happiness in some Eastern cultures are expressed as a sense of calm or peace, whereas in our Western culture, happiness is often jumping around with joy and excitement. This can cause two very different MRI readings that can actually mean the same thing, with the Eastern culture calm and peace happiness having a much calmer level of brain activity, and the Western joy and excitement happiness having a much higher level of brain activity. If a company isn't aware of the cultural differences between the two regions, the data can be misinterpreted and assume that the Eastern consumer isn't happy with the product like the Western consumer, or vice versa. It can also lead to failed product launches in regions if a company assumes that the cultures are the same, where a high level of brain activity in an Eastern culture might be a sense of panic over what they are viewing and not the sense of happiness in a Western culture. Neuromarketing can also help drive understandings between the differences in men and women and how to better market to them. Female brains tend to have a larger prefrontal cortex, which has an impact on emotions and the regulation of emotions. They also have a largest corpus callosum, which is the connections between the left and the right side of the brain, which enables women to distribute their thinking quicker and multitask better than men. The hippocampus is also larger, so the level of nuance in an emotion's details is much greater than a man's. An example of this is that a man will be able to tell you the day he proposed, while a woman will be able to tell you everything that happened on the day because her emotions were tied to it so well. Men tend to have a larger parietal lobe, giving them an advantage with spatial perception over women and preferring images over reading. These studies can improve marketing towards the genders by tying into the emotions of the gender. If we know that women are more social, empathetic, and verbal than men, advertisements can be geared to take advantage of that. For example, if we show men and women an image of someone drinking a beverage, both brains will react about the same. But if we show both genders a video of someone drinking a beverage and then interacting with another person in the advertisement, the female's brain will show a much higher level of activity than the male's. Companies can use cues like this to attach their brands to consumers to drive more market share for their brand.